The planet Erevan was a jewel in the distant Pentar system, a world where the skies shimmered with silver clouds and rivers of luminous liquid carved their way through endless forests. At the heart of Erevan, in a towering crystalline palace, lived Princess Leora, the last of the royal line. She was revered not only for her beauty but also for her unwavering independence. The males of her planet were proud and ambitious, and every suitor who came to court her met the same fate: rejection. Leora walked the palace halls with a grace that seemed effortless, yet her heart carried a quiet burden. She had seen kingdoms rise and fall because of alliances formed in the name of marriage, and she refused to be a pawn in such games. The Council of Elders had long accepted her will, but the males of noble houses grew restless. Whispers filled the corridors and bets were made on who might finally capture her favor. Leora ignored them all, retreating into her studies of ancient technology and diplomacy, hoping to prepare Erevan for threats that might one day reach its skies. Far beyond Erevan, in the humble human colony of Titan V, a young man named Adrian studied star maps and interstellar travel. He had heard tales of Erevan through transmissions, stories of the alien princess who spurned all suitors and refused to bow to tradition. Humans were considered minor players in galactic affairs, often overlooked by advanced civilizations. Adrian was not deterred by such notions. He believed that humanity could prove its worth if given the chance, and the challenge of Leora intrigued him more than any conquest or reward. Adrian journeyed across the void in a modest ship, navigating through asteroid fields and energy storms that had claimed far larger vessels. Weeks passed before the silhouette of Erevan emerged against the backdrop of its twin suns. The crystalline towers sparkled in the light, a city alive with energy and history. When Adrian landed, he was met with curious stares and cautious greetings, for no human had ever set foot on Erevan, and few aliens had ever encountered a human who dared approach the royal palace. Leora was initially dismissive when Adrian was presented before her. She noted his confidence but saw only another mortal male attempting to breach her walls. The palace guards watched silently, unsure if he would be turned away like all the others. Adrian, however, did not bow or beg. He did not offer gifts or promises. Instead, he spoke plainly, expressing respect for Leora's independence and a desire to learn from her wisdom rather than claim her for his own. Intrigued by his audacity, Leora allowed him to remain in the palace, though she maintained her distance. She watched him move through the halls, observing his curiosity, his diligence, and the subtle ways he engaged with the palace's complex technology. Adrian was unlike any suitor she had seen. He did not try to impress her with wealth or titles, nor did he attempt to manipulate her through flattery. His human perspective was fresh and untainted by centuries of courtly tradition. Over time, Leora began to notice the effects of his presence. The human's ability to adapt quickly, to innovate under pressure, and to solve problems creatively sparked something she had rarely felt. The male nobles of Erevan had become predictable, their minds bound by pride and protocol. Adrian challenged her in ways that were subtle yet profound. He questioned her assumptions, suggested new strategies for defense and diplomacy, and most importantly, respected her boundaries. One evening, a crisis struck the palace. A group of mercenaries from a neighboring system breached Erevan's outer defenses, intending to seize technology and valuable resources. Leora's guards were strong, but they were not prepared for the precision and coordination of the attackers. Alarmed, she considered her options and realized that conventional tactics might fail. Adrian, observing the unfolding situation, offered a plan that relied on ingenuity rather than brute force. Under his guidance, the palace defenses were augmented with human-engineered energy barriers and predictive countermeasures. The mercenaries were caught off guard by strategies they had never encountered, and their attack was thwarted without a single life lost. Leora, witnessing the effectiveness of his approach, felt a mixture of admiration and surprise. Here was a being from a species she had been taught to underestimate, yet his abilities had saved her kingdom. Days passed and Adrian remained in the palace, assisting with rebuilding efforts and advising on improvements to Erevan's defenses. Leora found herself drawn to him in a way she had never expected. She was aware of her own pride and the long history of rejecting suitors, yet she felt a subtle shift in her perspective. She realized that her previous rejections had been based on the assumption that all males were motivated by ambition or desire for power. Adrian proved that one could be different. Curiosity became respect, and respect evolved into a bond that neither had anticipated. Yet Leora, true to her nature, resisted acknowledging it fully. She valued her autonomy and feared the vulnerability that came with emotional attachment. Adrian sensed this and never pressed her for more than she was willing to offer. He shared stories of humanity, of its struggles and triumphs, and slowly, Leora began to see beyond the boundaries of her world. A festival approached, celebrating the founding of Erevan and its centuries-long survival against external threats. The palace buzzed with preparation, and nobles arrived from distant systems. Leora maintained her usual poise, yet she felt a subtle tension. She knew that suitors would attempt their usual flattery, and she dreaded the interactions. When Adrian accompanied her through the ceremonial halls, he offered quiet support, suggesting ways to navigate the social challenges without compromising her principles. During the festival, a ceremonial contest was announced, testing participants' wit, strategy, and understanding of Erevan's history. Traditionally, it was dominated by male nobles, and the winner would gain the princess's favor. Leora observed the contest with mild amusement, noting that the predictable patterns of the contestants contrasted sharply with Adrian's unorthodox thinking. When it was his turn, he approached the challenge without arrogance, relying on logic, creativity, and collaboration rather than competition. To everyone's astonishment, Adrian excelled. He navigated the puzzles and scenarios with insight that even the elders had not anticipated. Leora, watching him, felt a profound respect for the human's capabilities. Her earlier dismissals seemed trivial, and she recognized that her understanding of loyalty, intelligence, and strength had been limited by the insular culture of her own species. For the first time, she questioned her lifelong habit of rejection. After the festival, Leora sought Adrian in the quiet of the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected off crystalline fountains, casting shimmering patterns across the marble pathways. She approached him with a mixture of humility and resolve, realizing that her defenses, both political and emotional, had been challenged in ways she could not ignore. She spoke with sincerity, acknowledging the lessons he had imparted and the perspective he had offered. Adrian listened without interruption, sensing the gravity of her words. Leora admitted that she had long rejected males out of habit and caution, but his presence had compelled her to reconsider. She expressed gratitude and, with a quiet vulnerability, asked for guidance in understanding what it meant to trust and to seek help willingly. In that moment, she did not demand that he be her partner. She only sought the wisdom and perspective he had offered so freely. The days that followed were marked by collaboration and mutual respect. Leora worked alongside Adrian to implement reforms in Erevan's governance, emphasizing merit and ability over tradition and status. The nobles, initially skeptical, observed the tangible improvements in defense, diplomacy, and infrastructure. Leora's willingness to embrace change inspired her people, and Adrian's influence demonstrated the value of cross-species cooperation. As months passed, the bond between Leora and Adrian deepened. She learned to balance independence with openness, recognizing that seeking guidance did not diminish her authority. Adrian, in turn, grew to understand the complexities of Erevan's culture and the subtle interplay of honor, duty, and loyalty that defined its society. Together, they navigated challenges that neither could have faced alone, forging a partnership built on respect, intellect, and shared purpose. The turning point came when a new threat emerged from beyond the Pentar system, a fleet of raiders seeking to exploit Erevan's resources. Leora, having embraced a broader vision of strategy, worked closely with Adrian to coordinate planetary defenses and interstellar alliances. Their combined efforts rallied not only Erevan's forces, but also neighboring civilizations, demonstrating that collaboration across cultures and species could achieve what insularity and pride could not. In the aftermath of the conflict, as Erevan celebrated its survival and strengthened alliances, Leora reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She recognized that her earlier rejections had been a shield, a way to protect herself and her people. Yet she also understood that true strength lay in the ability to embrace assistance, to value merit over tradition, and to acknowledge when guidance was needed. Adrian remained by her side, not as a suitor to be won or a prize to be claimed, but as a partner in thought, action, and vision. Leora had learned to ask for help without shame, to admit vulnerability without losing authority, and to respect abilities regardless.